Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Edge Tech Podcast. As always, my name's Howard. I'm here with Antonio and Devin. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the biggest elephant in the room right now for the internet, net neutrality. We're also going to get in and talk about EA kind of losing their ass with loot crates. And we're also going to be talking about Apple's recent update for their root with no password login. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this puppy started. So yeah, boys, literally 2 weeks. Today is the 1st of December. So 2 weeks, the FCC is going to vote on and probably pass the end of net neutrality. So obviously this is a big fucking deal because net neutrality is required for what the internet is. When you think about what you can do on the internet without your internet service provider really jumping in and doing anything to prevent you. So, Devin, I know you watch a lot of Netflix. Verizon has their way here in 2 weeks. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to not only pay for Verizon, but you're also going to have to pay for Netflix and the special Netflix package from Verizon. So, makes no sense. There's no technical reason why this needs to happen. The proponents of the end of net neutrality like to say that this is going to somehow spur innovation, which doesn't make any sense because Ethernet speeds have quadrupled in the last 5 years, and net neutrality was instated in 2015, so it doesn't make any sense why internet speeds would stop getting faster because of net neutrality.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Removing the net neutrality rules. I mean, like, it's like, oh, we need to be, less regulated. It's too costly for us. The regulation is literally don't be constricting. Like it's not like, adding rules for you to have to check more things or, have this extra compliance. It's literally don't do these things. Just allow your network to be free and open. Be thankful that you're not treated like a utility,
Yeah,
which is
with
how
price regulation.
realistic. Yeah, which is how realistically should be. Like utilities have actual like pricing controls from the government. Like they have actual like availability requirements. They have all these other additional requirements that you don't have as an ISP. And the ISPs are still flipping out on it. And Verizon, glad you brought that up. Even now with Netflix has like this super HD level that's in between their HD and 4K levels. It's like less compressed HD, like 1080p. But Verizon doesn't support it. They don't allow it, right?
Isn't that
And
illegal? At this current
uh,
point in time, isn't that illegal?
you would think so, but it's not because it requires, I guess, some additional support from the ISP. It's not
Oh,
just
so they're just not doing it. Oh yeah, that's
no.
what's going to happen is once this net neutrality comes to an end, they'll be like, oh yeah, we installed the servers, but you got to pay. It's you know,
Well, once net neutrality ends, they're going to actually start charging Netflix for priority access, which is what they were trying to do before,
right.
which is worse because that affects everything. I can live without Super HD. I have the like 4K streaming plan, and the HD is available obviously as a subset of that,
Right.
and that's more than sufficient now. But Netflix raises their prices because they want all of this original content, some of which is great, some of which is mediocre, a lot of which is not worth watching, but they need more money from subscribers and stuff to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's super expensive. But if they have to pay for priority access, that means they're gonna, offset that to the consumer, which raises the price of Netflix. Not to mention that, as you said, there's nothing to stop the ISPs from requiring an additional
Oh
like
yeah, they could
level. Like,
they could totally double dip. I mean, they could charge Netflix for priority access, and then they could charge you for Netflix access. There's nothing to stop them from doing that. That's the worst part. It's not. I could understand. One of the things I keep hearing tossed around is it's like, well, why does everybody have the same bandwidth? Why does everybody have the same bandwidth? Blah blah blah. And you're missing the point. Nobody has the same bandwidth. I have 300 megabits per second down. You know, Devin, you have a gigabit down. That's differences in bandwidth. Nobody ever said Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, nobody ever said that they couldn't put different tiers of bandwidth. Nobody even said how much they could charge, because that was another thing is the proponents to the end of net neutrality, they always bring up, oh, well, you know, we're telling these people what they can charge. No, we're not. That's the problem. We're not. So, you know, if Comcast wanted to raise my bill, you know, $1,000 tomorrow, they could. I'm not in a contract, so they could easily do that. But people, I think the problem is people don't understand what really net neutrality is. Net neutrality is not constricting, you know, everybody has the same level of service. It's saying that all the traffic going across that network is treated the same. So it doesn't matter if you're watching TV through Netflix or YouTube or Hulu, or if you're browsing the internet, that traffic is treated the same. If the network's congested, it's going to all slow down. If it's not congested, it's going to all benefit. So, and there's no technological reason why this needs to happen, because if you've got a fat pipe, you know, if you've got 300 megabits or a gigabit, you're obviously going to have better speeds. You know, if you're running the 50 megabit per second package, you're obviously going to have worse speeds. And then, you know, you may not be able to watch 4K streaming through Netflix or whatever, but that's irrelevant. You know, I'm already paying Comcast X amount of money to get my content. Why do I got to pay more now? You know, what if Comcast doesn't want me using Google, for example? Legally, once net neutrality ends, they could block my access to Google, completely block the access to Google, and say, no, we want you to use Yahoo. And there's nothing I could do about it. And it's ridiculous that we have these people in power, Ajit Pai, who is not listening to the people he works for, the United States citizens. You know, we're his employer. He's not listening to us. It's ridiculous that we have no recourse is the problem. There's nothing we can do at this point. If this resolution passes, only thing we can hope for is that it goes to court, but how long is that going to take, you know? How long does it take for something like that to go to court? And we, most likely, net neutrality will win in court again because they've won in court in the past, but we'll see. That's really it at this point, but it's ridiculous that these internet service providers are doing this. And Antonio, who do you have for internet service? Are you Verizon or?
Yeah, I got Verizon.
So I have Verizon for my cell phone provider, which I'm getting ready to switch to T-Mobile, and cellular broadband has actually been deregulated months ago, so they can do whatever they want to cellular broadband, unfortunately. But I know for a fact that I did comparable speed testing with different methods to obscure what was actually coming across the pipe. So I will watch YouTube on my cell phone, and I'm paying for Verizon's unlimited plus blah 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 package. And today, for example, I'm up to 3 gigabits. Like, I've never gone over their quote unquote 26 gigabit cap or whatever. And if I don't obscure the traffic that's coming out of my phone back and forth, like if I don't use a VPN to kind of hide what I'm doing, they will throttle YouTube. YouTube takes time to buffer. If I go over VPN, it never buffers. It just runs right through, no problem. So they're already doing it for mobile broadband. And the reason I bring that up is because another friend of mine who's actually doesn't understand net neutrality and doesn't care, one of his arguments back to me is, how do you know these ISPs are going to do this? Just because net neutrality ends, how do you know they're going to do it? And I said, well, they're already doing it on mobile broadband, and they want this. Ajit Pai was a Verizon lawyer for 10 years. Why do you think he's doing this? I said, most likely what will happen is he's going to pass this resolution and then quit the FCC and go back to work for Verizon. There's no way he's not going to. I guarantee you. And Verizon's going to offer him a 7-figure salary.
Yep.
Yep. And then we as the American people are going to sit here and hold the bill, you know, because they got to make up for his 7-figure salary somehow. So.
Yeah, it's complete insanity.
Yeah.
So you really think that this is going to pass?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to pass. Just I'm trying to keep the politics out of this because this is a partisan issue. It's not a, you know, Republicans want this or want net neutrality. Democrats want net neutrality. Independents want everybody wants net neutrality. 98.5% of the internet wants net neutrality. So The problem is there's 5 people on the FCC board, 3 of which who have come out against net neutrality, 2 of which have come out for net neutrality. All they got to do is win 3-2, and that's it. So I almost guarantee it's gonna net neutrality is gonna end on the 14th, which the 15th we'll get our letters saying, hey, we've raised your prices, and if you don't like it, tough. What do you think, Antonio? Any thoughts?
I'm thinking like I read about some of this other stuff. It's kind of I've been so busy at work, but I read about some things about this, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's 3 against 2, but who's saying that one might not flip just because of everything that's going on? And like you said, they're working for us as the American people. Who's saying they might not say, okay, yeah, this is where we came out, said this before, but when it comes time to really vote, we're going to vote this way because of X, Y, and Z. Or they might not even explain the vote, like, this is what we voted, this is what it is, in the story. You know what I mean?
No, and I understand that, and I've been hoping for that, but I just don't see it. There is one potential. Like I said, I'm trying to keep politics out of it, but so the way it stacks up now, there's 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats on the FCC board. The 2 Democrats don't want this resolution to pass, and 2 of the 3 Republicans have vehemently opposed net neutrality, so they're going to vote to take it out. There is one Republican who has not, on the last vote, he didn't vote. So it's possible that he might flip-flop, but I can't remember his name. It's Michael. I can't remember his last name. I think his first name is Michael. But so he didn't vote on the last net neutrality bill. So it's possible he might say, you know what, my constituents don't want this. I'm not going to vote for it. Now, he doesn't actually have constituents. We don't vote these guys in. They're based on presidential elections. The next president comes in, they'll put somebody else in there. So that's really what it's based on. But we'll see. And the real problem is the FCC almost has no oversight. The FCC can just pass these kinds of resolutions without, the American people have come out against this resolution passing, and the FCC can just say, well, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway. Which to me, the FCC is a publicly funded by my tax dollars organization. They work for me. They need to do what I'm telling them to do. That's why we have elections. That's why we have this government process, and it doesn't make sense to me why you have a department like the FCC who can just say, well, we don't care what you think, this is what we're going to do. And it's even more mind-blowing to me that somebody like Ajit Pai could even make it to the FCC considering his background. How does somebody who spent 10 years of their career as a lawyer lobbying, I don't want to say lobbying, as a lawyer defending Verizon can make it to a public office where he can basically ignore the American people and do what's good for these big corporations? And don't get me wrong, the corporations obviously have their input, but in this case, there's no reason for net neutrality to end. It's a money grab. The only thing they want to do is charge people more money. They want to charge Netflix to stream their content. They want to charge Google to bring Google to Verizon and Comcast customers. That's what they want to do. They want to charge us to have access to that stuff. Beyond that, there's no reason for this.
It's because he's considered an industry expert.
It's ridiculous. You can be an industry expert, but not.
No, I agree. But that's the logic.
Because he knows the ins and outs above everything. So it's kind of like, oh, since he's an expert in this area, he can be able to lead and guide us to what is right.
Now, who's an industry expert is an engineer, not a lawyer. What's he an expert on? Going to court? He's not an expert on. If I come at him and start talking, the tech behind how the internet works, is he actually going to know that? What's his actual technical background? That to me doesn't. That doesn't make any sense. Somebody who is, a technical person, that's an industry expert, not a lapdog for Verizon. I'm sorry to say, but this whole situation's obviously, I'm sure everybody can tell, this whole situation's got me just fired up. It's just ridiculous that this could even fathomly happen. The ISPs have wanted to do this since 2009, and they lost this battle, and they lost it in court, and now, they backroom politics, and just if you got enough money to pay, you can get whatever you want done. And it's ridiculous that the FCC has no oversight to the point where the American people basically have no voice at this point. The American people during the public input submitted millions of objections to this, and they can basically say, "Well, we don't care what you think," and that to me is ridiculous. How does something like this happen? And it's not like we can vote these people out. That's the problem. We can't get rid of them once they're in there. We got to vote the president out, but then who's to say that the next president comes in goes, "I want to make changes at the FCC"? They might not care, So we really our backs are up against the wall here, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, this this money game in our regulatory system is why we have such irregularity. I mean, we have a ton of money in the country, but we're not leading in any of the metrics of, network speed, availability, coverage, any of that. And it's because, money is driving everything. Special interest is driving everything. So obviously, if you're a company, unless you're some kind of special, not publicly traded company, your interest is in making your shareholders more money. So if you have the ability to put your crony into the position to make, like, you're picking a referee from your own team to referee the game. Like, not only referee the game, but you're also picking a crony to referee the game. You're picking a crony from your team to make the rules of the game.
Yeah.
A commissioner, really. You're obviously going to have a game that's rigged in your favor. And then the other teams that you're playing against also have the same interest. It's the most illogical setup ever conceived, and it's only going to play out, poorly. And the problem is partially there were millions of people, millions of comments, because there's a whole level of research that shows that a bunch of the comments were computer generated or bot generated, but there's millions of comments in opposition, but there were more comments in favor of net neutrality, but they weren't unique. Thousands of them were similar. There were only, like, even though there were 2 million comments, there were only like 20,000 unique comments. The rest were recycling the same language over and over again with, minor tweaks.
Right.
And
go ahead.
that's going to be their justification, but we had public support for it. Look at all these comments.
Well, the problem is, though, because I know what you're talking about, and that's where I actually get that 98.5% from. So on the public comment forum, there was computer-generated comments saying they wanted net neutrality to end, and then there was computer-generated comments saying that they didn't want net neutrality to end. And a lot of that comes from, if you go to a website like the eFrontier, I think is what it is, or the Electronic Frontier Foundation, that's what it is, EFF. It's the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So they're a big supporter of net neutrality. And they actually have on their website during the comment period, please tell the FCC that you don't want net neutrality to end. And they basically pre-populated the message and everything for you, so it made it very easy to click. I can understand that, where you could say, well, these people may not know what net neutrality is, they're just clicking buttons. I can understand that. Another organization actually came out and siphoned off all the similar comments. So all the comments that were the same, they boiled down all the comments to only the unique comments. 98.5% of the unique comments left during that time period were, "We don't want net neutrality to end." So it doesn't make, like I said, it doesn't make sense to me how this could even be feasibly possible, but
it's happening.
Yeah, and at this point, there's really not much else we can do. I know there's for all the listeners, if you're interested in trying to fight it, there are protests going on outside of Verizon stores on the 7th of December. Major Verizon stores around the country are being protested. If you are interested in protesting, I wholeheartedly welcome, do it. I wish there was a protest being organized outside the FCC building on the 14th, but, of course, that's a federal building, and it's difficult to protest on federal property. I wouldn't say difficult, it's just a lot of paperwork, and it's difficult. That's the best way to put it, but at this point, it's out of our hands. You know, there's really not much else we can do. Everybody has said their piece on this, and it looks like we're just going to get fucked over anyway. You know, nobody wants this to happen, but, you know, fuck you for whatever you want, and you're going to like it. Oh, you don't
You
like
gotta
it?
have faith. You don't know. It could be a possibility that they vote against it and say, "Hey, let's keep it."
I don't know, man. There's so much overwhelming support on that board to take away net neutrality. It's almost a. You're right. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball here, but there's so much overwhelming support to end net neutrality that I really think it's going to be a done deal. And then I always love the comeback to that as well. When net neutrality ends, if you don't like what Verizon or Comcast is doing, you know, switch. And it's like, okay, yeah, let me get right on that. So who's the internet service providers in my area? I got Comcast and I got Verizon, and I got AT&T Uverse. The three biggest internet service providers in America are also the three people who want net neutrality to end. So, okay, I'm going to leave Comcast and go to Verizon, who's doing the same thing Comcast's doing. Okay, I don't like that, so I'm going to leave Verizon and go to AT&T, who's also doing the same thing Verizon and Comcast are doing. And then I always love to come back to that. Well, there's regional ISPs. No, there's not. The problem is the market is so controlled by these three big internet service providers, which should be classified as a monopoly, but that's neither here nor there, that let's say I try to go to Cox. Cox is owned by the same company that owns Comcast. So I'm on the Comcast network again. You know, if I want to go to Joe's DSL service, 9 times out of 10, I would even say 99 times out of 100, the only thing he's doing is reselling AT&T service, just with different rules. So you're back on the AT&T network. So there's no competition out there, because that's the other argument for net neutrality to end, is that the free market will control prices and prevent this from. I'm like, no, it won't, because the three people who provide internet service are all going to do it. So, okay, you don't like what Verizon's doing, going to Comcast. They're doing the same thing. Go to AT&T. They're doing the same thing. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to pay, and that's what it boils down to. You know, it's ridiculous. And then, you know, the reason we have these Title II utilities like this is from the 1934 Title II Telecommunications Act. That's where the name comes from. And it basically said that no matter who you had as a telephone provider, whether it was Bell Atlantic or Bell South, or this was at a time when the telephone was really strangled by the Bell companies, no matter who you had, they had to treat your call the same. You know, if you had one of their smaller telephone company providers, they had to treat your call the same no matter what. So if you were on Bell and you called somebody who wasn't on Bell, they couldn't make your call a piece of shit. They had to make the call the same as if they were providing it for one of their companies. You know, it was all the same. And that's what it's about. It's not about, you know, this is bad for internet service providers. How's it bad for internet service providers? They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is route the traffic. All they have to do is switch packets. If you take net neutrality out and they want to restrict traffic, it's actually more overhead to do that than it is to just switch them. So this is about making everybody equal. If you're on Verizon, if you're on Comcast, if you're on AT&T, it doesn't matter. Your traffic gets treated the same. If you want a bigger pipe to get your traffic faster, that's fine. Do it. You want to pay more a month because you think Verizon's better than Comcast? That's fine. Do it. No reason why this should happen. Absolutely none. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. I guess it's like I said. This got me pretty fired up. I was fired up back in 2009 when this first happened. So, needless to say, this has rehashed that fire.
It's
Yeah, I
going
think
to be okay.
the best that we can hope for is that there's a lawsuit that
No.
stops this. But the problem is that, you know, there isn't any law really that covers this. Like, it's completely in the FCC's hands. Like, it took them reclassifying the ISPs to begin with in order for them to be able to apply Title II to them in the first place.
Right.
And so they have the same power to go back and say, you know what, we were wrong. We shouldn't have classified them that way. We'll go back to the old way.
I mean, that's really the only hope, is if they get declassified as utilities, then that means the FCC kind of loses their power over them. which does open up the room for legislation. But what we have to hope for at that point is you have to hope for
that's not happening.
yeah. Well, even better on that topic, Ajit Pai thought of that. He did not want states to pass any types of laws that might hamper this effort. So in his bill, not only has he taken out net neutrality, which is not what the people want, he also took away the states' rights to pass their own net neutrality. So if you live in the Delmarva area and the Delmarva states say we want net neutrality, they can't even pass a law because the FCC has so much fucking power that they can just say fuck state rights and that's it. And there's nothing they can do about it. In the bill, it says that the FCC ruling preempts all state rulings. How is that even legal? But
it's how the federal system works.
Yeah, I understand that, but
it's one of the amendments says that all states have the right to legislate themselves with the exception of laws that are written by the federal government.
Right,
so.
But only if they affect interstate commerce, which of course the internet traverses all states, so obviously it's protected by federal law. So I understand that, but if you have a local internet service provider, for example, states should be able to pass local net neutrality laws if they want, but no, that's tough titty. And this bill is basically it's so well crafted to just dismember net neutrality that it's near impossible without repealing this bill. It's not a bill; it's an act, I guess, isn't it? I think that's what it's actually called. It's some type of act. But yeah, the only way to actually get this out would be to reverse this act. But the whole thing's a shit show. Yeah, so
that's what happens when you put a lawyer in charge. Airtight.
Yep.
That's kind of smart.
Not to mention, wasn't he on Verizon's side as they were fighting for this originally?
Yeah. He's been against net neutrality since day one.
Yeah, I mean he was like working for Verizon as
he was a lobbyist
as counsel.
Yeah.
During the time that they were originally trying to fight against this.
I mean, that's a super smart pimp move. Like, oh, for real? You want to do what? Okay, I'll just plant somebody there to get what I want.
Oh yeah, we'll just
might take a couple years.
Yeah. We'll install our crony to basically take this out once he gets powerful. Like, that's the whole thing. This is all backroom politics. My point of view is the FCC needs to have oversight. They should not just have the end all be all in this case. It should be, okay, you passed a resolution. Now it goes to the House and the Senate for confirmation. The same way, we do other departments. You can't just pass laws without any checks. They basically are the power here. There's no checks and balances. If
judge and jury.
Exactly. The judge, jury, and executioner at that point. It's what is this? Judge Dredd? You just I'm gonna kill you here in the streets, because I'm it. Like,
I'm the law.
Exactly.
That's the law around these parts.
I mean, that's basically what this has become. Ajit Pai has become the law of the internet at this point. Whatever he wants, he's gonna get. So, and there's no going back on it. If you don't like it, that's tough. If the president tried to pass a law, the House and the Senate have to get involved. And of course, the president has certain powers, but so does the House and the Senate. There's the reason why we have those three rings of government. We have checks and balances, But for some reason, this FCC can operate clandestine and do whatever they want without any oversight. Like, who's watching the watchers?
No one. It's called he's a pimp, so he's gonna do what he want with his hoes. Okay.
Yeah, the American people were the hoes.
Yeah, I'm like, aren't we all?
I'm just saying that's how it is. Like, oh, what? Shut up! I'm doing what I want. You just follow suit.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, we just got pimp slapped straight across the face. Nothing we can do about it.
I got your $40 a month, Mr. Pai. Bitch, where's my money? What? But the 40's been good the last things have changed.
Yeah, I
You
need.
don't have to come up.
You think I can pay for this Cadillac on $40 a month? But you're in a Bugatti. You think that's enough? I want a Cadillac too. Like, what? And I always love the argument. Oh well, the internet service providers need to make money too. You mean beyond that record profit that they've been making the last 5 years? Are you serious? You think they're not making money? I pay $75 a month in cable or in internet service. You think Comcast didn't have to do anything? The lines were already here, and I bought my own modem. All they do is turn the damn service on.
I mean, they would make money off the modem.
Yeah,
they make money off of all of it. That's the business model.
Yeah.
But
Oh man.
Again, they're not an actual like utility. Utilities don't make very much money because the prices are fixed.
Well, yeah, but my tax dollars also go into subsidizing utility costs.
Do they?
Yeah. Your tax dollars go into subsidizing utility costs. I don't know the specifics, and it's different for every locale. But BG&E, up until they became completely deregulated, was being paid by the state of Maryland, or the city of Baltimore and Baltimore County, and partially through the state of Maryland. They were subsidizing the cost. That's because they were fixed costs. So obviously, if the operations exceeded the amount of money that they brought in, they can't take a loss. It's not how you run a business. So
that's not quite the same.
Yeah, and trust me, I get that. But what I'm saying is the internet service is not subsidized by taxpayer money. The problem with the internet service is it was built with taxpayer money because packet switching and TCP over IP was built through ARPANET, which was a government-funded project through the Advanced Research Projects Administration. So how did we end up to a point where 5 internet service providers have a stranglehold on the internet when my tax dollars built the shit? How did we get to that point? And I wouldn't even mind paying taxes if it was, internet service is, free and open. All you have to do is buy a modem and plug it in and you're set. Of course, that's the logistics behind that. And then the question becomes, the government's controlling the internet, blah, blah, blah. So that's its own thing. But I'm fine with the way things are now. I don't mind paying Comcast $75 a month for my cable or for my internet service. Devin, Antonio, I'm sure you guys don't mind paying Verizon for your internet service. What I do mind is not only am I paying you $75 a month for internet service, now I got to pay you $3 a month to get to Google. Now I got to pay you $10 a month because I want to play online games. That's another thing. They could, in theory, restrict your bandwidth or throttle your bandwidth for your internet gaming. I play a lot of games online. Antonio, you pay for Xbox Live, right?
Yes, sir.
So imagine now you have to pay Verizon, pay Xbox Live, and then pay Verizon because you want the internet entertainment package. So if you want to play online, video games online, not only do you got to pay Verizon once, you got to pay them for a package to allow you to play online, and then you got to pay Xbox to play on their service.
I will figure out how to pirate the fuck out that shit.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
The internet service provider that all your data is coming through can monitor your traffic legally. And beyond that, even crazier beyond that, wiretapping laws. If they're no longer a utility, if internet service is not classified as a utility, there's no need to get a warrant for wiretapping. The reason why, obviously the NSA collects data, but they can't access that data without a warrant. And if they do, when you go to court, that just gets thrown right out. Same way telephones are. They can't listen in, they can't wiretap calls without a warrant because telephone calls are protected under the Title II Act.
Unless they classify you as a terrorist.
Yeah, they still can't take you to court without a warrant, though.
You don't have to take you to court.
Look, you know what I'm saying.
Court.
So here's what I'm saying, though, is now if this happens, internet service is no longer protected under Title II. They don't need anything to just watch and monitor your internet traffic. I don't do anything wrong. I've never broken a law in my life. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. But I don't like the idea of somebody watching what I'm doing 24/7. I think we all like our privacy, right? I think everybody in America can say that they enjoy their privacy. They don't like people watching them 24/7. So the fact that this could also happen is ridiculous, and there's really no recourse, and your only option at that point would be I'm going to VPN all my traffic, but you're going to have to pay another service fee for VPN access, and then if you're not so technically inclined, some of that stuff can be difficult. If you don't understand completely what's going on, you know. And then even better is like I was talking about earlier with like Comcast, for example, or AT&T. So AT&T is actually in a bid to buy out. Is it who owns CNN? Is that Time Warner?
I don't know. No
What,
idea.
anyway, so AT&T is in a bid to buy out a company, but by proxy they would end up owning CNN, right? So let's say AT&T wants to push the agenda that CNN is pushing, right? They can restrict your access to other information so that you can only get your news information over their internet service from CNN. So at that point it becomes well, who can just pay us enough money, and then beyond, obviously looking in a grander scheme. Let me put my tinfoil hat on really quick. Hang on. Where'd I put it? It's right here. All right, I got my tinfoil hat on. In a grander scheme of things, presidential elections, for example, let's say Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, they all want a particular candidate to win. All they got to do is throttle your connection or block your connection completely to the other candidate's point of views, and that's it. They're shaping the future of America at that point through money.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Anyway, well, I guess that's the end of that.
But Time Warner owns CNN. That's a note.
Yeah, so it's AT&T's in a bid to buy Time Warner now. I think the Federal Trade Commission's actually looking at that just to kind of see if they're going to allow it to pass or not. But back to what I was saying about them potentially throttling video games. The reason I brought that up was because there are media corporations that have controlling stock in EA and Origin and Steam and Blizzard. What's to stop Comcast or Verizon at that point saying, you know what, we don't want you playing Steam anymore. We want you to go through EA now. You got to get everything through Origin. They could, in theory, block your connection to Steam completely. You can't get to Steam at all, and there's nothing you can do about it. All because they have controlling stock in a competitor's product. So, and of course, that's good on the bottom line. So, but the reason I bring that up is this is going to take a nice hard shift left for everybody out there. The reason I bring that up is look at EA with their losing $3.1 billion in stock value because of loot boxes. At that point, the people kind of talked with their buying power. This whole Battlefront 2 situation where they had the pay to win aspect of the game, people didn't like it, so they were able to damage EA's stock price to a point where EA might think about not doing that again. Granted, now their stock is still up like $50 or whatever from where it was at the beginning of the year, but I think that sends a pretty powerful message when you really think about it. We lost $3.1 billion in stock value because gamers didn't like what we were doing.
Shout out to the gamers.
Mm-hmm.
I've hated EA for a long time. I'm not sure why this is like suddenly a problem. They've been on a money grab tear forever, and I'm a PC gamer. They have always, them and Ubisoft have been fucking horrible at porting games over to the PC, despite the fact that the games are obviously developed on PCs to begin with. And they just suck. Like microtransactions, DLC. There's a time, you've got to be really young to not remember a time before DLC was like common. There's a time where you got a game and that was
it. That was
it was
the whole
fully
game.
fleshed out. Like Battlefront, the original one, was like the worst example of like the framework of a game being released as a full title. Like it was $60 new, and it had like 60% of like a multiplayer game, no story, and and no one played it. And like Battlefront 2 was even worse, obviously, because the microtransactions were clearly apparent as a money grab in the beta, and people like went apeshit over it, so no one bought it. It was down 65% in terms of initial sales compared to the initial release of Battlefront,
And that
which
didn't even do
itself
that good.
also had a beta where everyone noticed how shitty and like empty the game was, and that game didn't actually sell well, like at all. It was like number 40 out of 100 for a blockbuster release. That's terrible. Like I can't even think of 35 other games in a year like that I would that I could name as AAA titles, and for that game to sell that poorly, and this game to not even be in the top 100, Battlefront 2, they deserve it. EA totally sucks. They are a horrible, horrible publisher. They treat their developers wrong or poorly. They treat the studios poorly. They don't give them time to create anything worthwhile. They're like GM in the 80s or something. Like they just don't give a shit. Like just make something. People will buy it. Like and so they deserve worse than this, honestly. Like this is temporary, and like you said, their stock is still up year over year by almost 50%, or not 50%, 25%,
50
almost
bucks, yeah.
$50. And they deserve much worse than this. Like there are games where you have to pay to win, but they're typically free to play games.
Mhm.
I don't agree with the pay to play dynamic, but how the fuck are you gonna charge me for a full price for a game that isn't a full game, and then charge me to actually be able to play the game on top of that? Fucking EA and Verizon should merge, honestly. And then they could just
Don't
they
give them
could just
ideas.
go they could go fucking gangbusters. Like make it really easy.
Jeez.
Oh, just use your Verizon account to pay for your
Yeah.
in-game loot boxes. Like
Oh, don't worry. You gotta have the EA. You gotta have the EA subscriber package in order to play EA games. You know.
it they deserve it. They completely and utterly deserve it. Anyone else that does the same thing deserves it. Honestly, who what is it? Blizzard that makes the Destiny games, the same fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're releasing part of a game for fucking $60, and I get it. It's expensive to develop a game. I get that. If you make a whole game, like, but you have one or two really worlds that you just have people play new, matches on. Doesn't cost that much. Battlefront 2, I'm sure they were able to reuse the NPC and player models and textures from the original game, which was beautiful. It was very photorealistic, very representative of the Star Wars universe. But you're able to reuse that shit, and then you didn't do anything to make a story. You don't have to create a new game engine. What am I paying for? And then you have the fucking audacity to charge me to get heroes, to charge me to get loot. If I
Yeah,
don't want to
or
pay
you could
for it,
play the
it'll
game for 900 hours. You know how long it takes to
yeah.
play a game for 900 hours? Like,
No, it was thousands of hours.
yeah,
A dude did an analysis of it. You either pay, or it's thousands of hours
of
to earn
grinding.
the heroes
Yeah,
and to earn the loadouts. Thousands of hours. We were talking about this in another context, but there's
yeah.
2,000. Well, similar context, but there's 2,000 hours in a work year, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
working 40 hours a week, and you want me to devote. You don't want obviously you don't want me to devote that kind of time. You want me to pay. That's what you want me to do.
Yeah.
But the real alternative isn't actually an alternative. The only thing you can do if you want to play that game is to pay for it. And luckily, gamers, smart lot they are, said, "Fuck you, EA. I'm not buying your game. I'm not playing it." That's what I said. Like I was like, it's still full price. It's like $60 right now.
Yeah.
Like just like Battlefront, the first release, that game dropped in price a month and a half after its release and stayed there, and then dropped and dropped and dropped to the point where it was at like $15 for a brand new copy of the game like 4 months after its release, which is unheard of.
Yeah, for
Good
a
game,
triple A
like Grand
title.
Theft. Hmm?
For a triple A title. Like that's considered a triple A title, It's like you were saying, go ahead and complete your thought with Grand Theft Auto, so.
Yeah, as a comparison, Grand Theft Auto fully fleshed out, continue to release more content. You don't have to buy new shit for it. Is still $30 4 years after the game was originally released.
5,
Like,
homie. 5. It's been out for like
yeah,
5 years now. So
yeah, yeah. And I had issues with Rockstar and neglecting the PC for fucking 18 months, so I never officially bought the game from them. But that is at least a much better business model for me
yeah.
as a person with a limited amount of time and not much interest in buying, crap, so that's a much better model and it shows. They can still sell it for $30 because people still want that game.
Well,
If you
in
have to drop the
addition, Rockstar did it right. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but Rockstar did it right. So they do have microtransactions, but it's for their online portion. And they're constantly adding stuff to the online portion, but they're not charging you for online access. So not only did you get a 40-hour game, if you even longer if you actually go for everything in the story mode, but then in addition you can play online for free. You may have to pay, if you want more cash or whatever, all you gotta do is rob a convenience store, or you can just pay for it. So that's the right way to do it. Like, don't feed me a pile of crap and then say, "Oh, but if you want us to take the crap out and give you filet mignon, you got to keep paying."
you
You know,
want that cheeseburger with a side of shit.
yeah,
But
no,
you want this menu over here.
yeah, feed
How
me
they supposed
filet
to make their
mignon and
money?
then say, if you want bacon with it, go ahead, Antonio.
They
I
I'm sorry.
got they got to feed you something. They got to make money.
I
Feed
understand
me
that,
a
but
good game.
Rockstar makes money,
How is
so
it more money?
yeah, that's the problem with this society is it's gotten so hard up on money grabbing. It's ridiculous, and we as the consumers are the ones that lose out. But I will say this: that luckily, what's happening now is the rise of indie developers are kind of taking over. So if you look at my Steam library, a lot of the games I play are indie titles. I play like No Oxygen Included, or I'm sorry, No Oxygen Not Included is the name of the game. I play like Factorio and stuff like that. Me and Devin been playing Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, and that's even starting to get more corporate. But the thing about Player Unknowns though is there's no loot box. So, and I think there is a microtransaction mechanic, but it's all for cosmetic items. Like you can't the in the canon of the game, you start off with nothing but your boxer shorts, and you have to find everything in the game world. So there's no way you could pay to win. And that game is selling for $30, and it's an alpha game. It might be a beta. So, and it's extremely popular because they're doing it the right way. People don't mind paying microtransactions for stuff that doesn't give them. People with money, you love paying for microtransactions for stuff that gives them unfair advantages, but your average consumer doesn't mind paying extra money for stuff that's cosmetic as long as everybody's on the same playing field.
So you don't want to be the rich guy and have the advantage. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I ain't got that kind of money. I mean, Bitcoin market's been all right on me, but I ain't got that kind of money. Because Devin, did you ever see how much it actually costs to like buy everything in uh, Battlefront 2?
No,
If you
no,
were
I
to pay
didn't.
to win, I don't have the exact amount of money. I'm actually looking it up right now, but it was an astronomical cost. Like you would have to pay. I think it was well over $1,000 if you wanted to pay to win.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was.
some project manager went, oh, the engineer has a concern that, it's gonna drive people away. Fuck it, just try it. They
Yeah.
get upset, we can change it later.
Yep. And they were very quick to turn it off. So they
Yeah.
baked that shit right into the game. Like, well, if they don't like it, we'll turn it off, and then I love their response. Like, oh, well, we're gonna fix it and then bring it back at a later date. No, you're not. You're not gonna fix it. You're just gonna turn it on after this all blows over. You're gonna turn it back on and then keep on trucking.
Yeah, that's cool. They can turn it back on for the 700 people playing that game. And they get everything they have coming to them, or they deserve it, rather.
Yeah. except for that record profit. They don't deserve that record profit. It's just like I said. Trust me, I'm a total capitalist. Like, if you have a good product and you market it well and it's well engineered and you take it to market and people love it and people want it and you make a lot of money, that is awesome. That's the American dream. But when you're already making a ton of money and you're just screwing over all of your consumers, and obviously, we don't have to play these games. Don't get me wrong. Nobody's putting a gun to my head and saying, "Oh, you have to play Battlefront 2." But the problem is look at Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect is one of my favorite series. Like I've been playing the original trilogy recently, and the original Mass Effect's like 10 years old now. So I've definitely gotten my use out of that game, but I'm not a big like multiplayer guy. Like I play a lot of single player games. Like I have Horizon Zero Dawn on PlayStation. I'm playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
How do you like Horizon Zero Dawn? I haven't launched that yet.
Oh, as a sidebar, I love it. It's a great game. Graphically, it looks amazing. Story's really well built. It's a great game. But there's another game coming out that I'm really interested in for PlayStation 4. It's coming out next year. It's called Detroit Become Human. Another amazingly story-driven game. I don't know. Obviously, it hasn't come out yet, so I don't know how good it's going to be. But it looks great. The story's got a good premise. I think a lot of people, that's what they want. Like, video games aren't... you have your multiplayer games. You have your Call of Duties that they rehash the same game every other year. Oh, well, last year you could kill people with future guns. And this year you can kill people with past guns. Like, okay, it's same game now, right? Yeah, same game. Okay, cool. That's fine. If that's what you want, that's fine. Like, I know a guy, he only plays the multiplayer on these games, and that's fine. To me, it doesn't make sense. Like, if I'm spending $60 on a game, I'm playing a story, and I want that story to be...
the Call of Duty campaign is shit. So.
Yeah. Which, like I said, he likes to play the multiplayer, and I'm not going to knock him for that. That's totally fine. If they came out with a $30 version of Call of Duty, and let's say they came out with 3 versions. You got the $60 version that includes everything. You got the $30 for the story only. You got the $30 for the multiplayer only. I would actually be like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. But to me, if I'm going to spend $60 on a game, I want a story that, even if it's not super duper long, if you got an 8 or 10 hour game, but the story's pretty engaging and the graphics are pretty good, like I don't mind spending money on that. But I can't justify, spending $60 on a game strictly for multiplayer only. It's unless it's incredible. Like, it's got to be an incredible experience. Like,
I actually agree with that. I don't buy multiplayer only games when they're new for that very reason.
He says as we play PUBG every night.
Yeah, that game was half the price of a full game.
Yeah.
What about Titanfall?
Titanfall, I didn't. I have Titanfall 2 that I paid like almost full price for. That's just because I never sent it back to GameFly, but I never played it really. So
I played Titanfall 1. I like the story in Titanfall. So from the last episode, as everybody can tell, I am a huge fan of mecha. So when they were like, "Hey, you can fuck people up in a mech," I was like, "Shut up and take my money." But I didn't like that multiplayer aspect of it, because the problem is now there's no replayability. Like, I can play Mass Effect 1 because it doesn't require multiplayer. If I go to play Titanfall 1, if there's nobody playing, I'm not going to get into a match. And if I want to do a story match, what am I going to do? So there's no replayability, but which now they fixed that with Titanfall 2 because there is a separate story mode.
Yes, it sucked.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I don't even think I played online Titanfall 2 at all. I was a little disappointed by it.
Like, I feel like the online play, obviously the co-op play was awesome, but when you playing the story mode, like, yo, you could have gave me a better story than this. But at the same time, I appreciate them giving me a story, because the first one was like,
it's another.
I'm anticipating. I need something to go with this game. Like, okay, how did robots come about? Like, where did it all come from? Versus,
right.
Oh yeah, here's just robots run around shoot.
Yeah, And of course, this is another EA title, so.
And we know how much we love EA.
Yep.
You know what's interesting? I'm on EA's website looking through their PC games, and it goes back to like 1999. For like their first 6 years, they were just doing like Need for Speed, Sims, and sport games.
Oh yeah, once
And
they
they
bought Maxis, like that was their moneymaker was The Sims and SimCity until they. Oh Christ! So, sidebar, I love SimCity as well. I played all the SimCities, from the very first one. I emulated that one, obviously, because I'm not old enough to have played it when it first came out. But when they brought out the brand new one, holy shit! I still I have it, so I can't sit here and knock. I did buy it, but it's another shit show. Their online service, because you're basically forced online. They have an offline mode per se, but
wasn't that broken if I remember
it was
correctly? That was broken
broken
on
to
release.
hell in a handbag. When I first bought
Yeah.
the game, I couldn't play it for 2 days. I was pissed
What?
because
Yeah,
it was an
that shit was
online.
totally broken at release. Yeah.
Oh, it was horrible. It was a permanently online game, so the only way you could play the game is if you connected. Basically, the game you had local was like a server client with the graphics and everything stored locally. It then connected to EA servers so that you could pull the data. So no matter even if you weren't playing with anybody, you had to connect to EA servers. So if your internet connection was down, you're not playing. If their servers were down, which they were for weeks, you weren't playing. Like you were done. That was it. Get fucked. So I was extremely pissed when that came out. And they did release a offline patch, but the fucked up part though is they said, "Oh, we have to really restructure the game to make it offline mode." And then somebody online changed like 5 lines of code and he was like, "Oh no, you don't. It's right here, offline mode." And I was like, "Man, see, the problem is you can never lie to the internet because not only will you get found out because it's the internet, but they'll never forget because this was in 2013 and here we are in 2018 and I'm still pissed about it."
Yeah.
Yep.
But
I think Battlefront 4 was also broken when they released it.
and then
It was.
they scrapped the another fucked up thing about EA canceling closing down their studios, Visceral, and that's what EA does. If you guys haven't noticed, they buy studios and close them. Uh, yeah, another.
Classic capitalism.
Yeah, exactly. Eliminate your competition by buying them and shutting them down.
And so, in a bright spot of news, fans are petitioning Lucasfilm and Disney to remove EA from the Star Wars video game series.
Oh, that would be
So
incredible.
it's got 100,000 signatures as of today.
Yeah, but the problem is, I mean, these are private companies, though, so it's not like we can only ask them to do it. But if Lucasfilm is like, no, fuck you,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do. They don't work for us, so I mean, they do
Well,
because we pay them, but
considering that the
companies.
2 games flopped, I think they might consider it. So, I mean, while EA is doing very well, it's not at all because of the 2 Battlefront games they've released. Those have been terrible failures. It's because of like Battlefront, no, Battlefield,
Oh yeah, Battlefield 1.
fighting games. Yeah, Battlefield 1. What else do they have? The FIFA game, I'm sure
Oh yeah,
sold
because
really
they
well.
sell out. They always sell out really well.
Mass Effect. I don't know how well Sims is selling at this point.
Oh, well, Mass Effect's basically done. Like they mothballed Mass Effect, which I really hope. I would really love to see a studio like Guerrilla Games, who's the developer of Horizon Zero Dawn. Like I would love to see them or somebody similar to them pick that up and just run with it. Like that would be amazing, but that's never gonna happen. Like EA will wait until this Andromeda bullshit blows over, and then they'll release another one. They're like, "Well, we fixed the eyes." Like, great. I was playing Andromeda the other day, so I have a subscription to the EA catalog or whatever because I do like obviously the first 3 Mass Effects. I like Crisis. I got all the Crisis games there. So SimCities, I can play all the original SimCities. They're all there. The Sims. So I like those games. They're from former EA, but so I was playing Andromeda, And the game has been patched well over, and it's still kind of broken. Like, the voice acting sucks. The facial animations, they're better. Like, the eyes aren't cross-eyed anymore, and like there'll be context where it's like, oh, your dad died, and the dude's smiling. Why is my main character smiling? And then it's like his voice actor's like, oh, I can't believe my dad died, and I'm like, are you kidding me? In Mass Effect 3, the voice actor for Shepard, you felt like he was pissed. Like when he walks in on the council and he's like, I fucking warned you about these Reapers coming and nobody fucking believed me. Like you felt like he was pissed. This guy, like he spends 600 years in a coma, traveling across space, in stasis, and his dad dies in the first, 5 minutes of the game, and he's like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, the fuck? You don't feel anything about this? Jesus Christ. I'm not a voice actor, but I feel like I could, bring up some sadness in my life, like, so that I could emote well to my dad being dead. Like,
Hey, you guys want me to use any inflection on these lines? No, just deadpan it.
yeah.
Okay.
You sure? Like, you're paying me a lot of money. We don't give a fuck. People are going to buy this. Don't worry.
Yeah, just do it in one go. Keep your emotions out of it. All right.
We'll sell them some microtransactions. They'll be fine. God. Oh, man. So, yeah, EA sucks. I like Devin's original comment. EA and Verizon should just team up and go gangbusters. That's funny.
Yeah. Still all of our money. Like,
yeah,
they could be like the cartel that does fucking eyeglasses. Like, yeah, we're the insurance company.
Oh yeah,
and,
shit, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, keep going. That's a good story.
We're the eye insurance company, and yeah, we also make the glasses, and all those fancy name brand frames. Yeah, we just license those names. We also do the 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 eye appointments. We own your
Yeah.
Sears Optical and Lens Crafter too. Like what? In what fucking world does that make sense? Why am I paying you for insurance so you can pay yourself for overpriced glasses?
Shut up.
What?
But yeah, was it you I was talking about that? I had no idea that was a thing, or was that? I have a buddy of mine lives in California. He might have also like turned me on to that. For everybody that doesn't know, go ahead, Devin. I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I knew about it. I don't know if I brought it up to you, but yeah, it
might
was
have been my
fucking
buddy.
shocking for me. I
Yeah.
don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I stumbled on it. I was like, what in the actual fuck is this? Like,
Yeah.
this is like the De Beers like diamond cartel. Like they own the entire market, like the whole from one end to the other. Like
yeah, it's total vertical and horizontal integration. It's intense. And for everybody that doesn't know, I'll be quick about this. If you have an insurance company, let's take iMed for example, they own Pearl Vision and Sears Optical and Lens Crafters, and they own so they're the insurance company paying the optometrist, but the optometrist works for a company that's owned by the insurance company. So the insurance company is not paying the optometry, or the store. They're paying themselves. They're just shuffling the money around, and then on top of that, all the frames inside of your Pearl Vision, your Sears, your for example, they're licensed by the insurance companies because it's just this gigantic conglomerate that owns the insurance company, that owns the optometry, and it owns the licenses to the frame. So they're just one big happy company.
And they own Ray-Ban outright, entirely.
And Sunglass Hut. They own Sunglass Hut too. Like totally.
Yeah. So those fancy frames that you're paying $300-$400 for. Now, granted, even if Ray-Ban was still independent, they probably would be cheaply made in China and shit. But it just leaves a bad taste that it's all. Well, you think if you integrate, you get efficiency, you lower prices, but they're still charging $300 for Ray-Bans as like this luxury item when it's just a subsidiary that's no longer a luxury at all or special in any manner, and they're just selling it based off the name. Like it's
even
disgusting.
Even better than that, they also own like the lens coatings. So like your Veriluxes, your Transitions, they own those companies. So
Right.
it's funny because you have to pay premiums for those. Like you pay when you go in to get your glasses. They're like, oh, well, your insurance company only covers part of uh, transitions. You got to pay for the rest. It's like for what? They own the company. Why can't they
And
just pay for it all?
that shit doesn't even last. Like I went in with my glasses and I'm like, oh, these don't really fit right, and it kind of looks like the coating is like the transition film is coming off. The guy asked me how long I had them. I'm like, oh, I've had them for about a year. He's like, oh, it's about time for you to get a new pair. Bitch, what?
Damn, that was a hard bitch.
Without insurance, these were almost $600, and then after a year, it's about time for me to replace them.
For anybody
I
that
mean,
wants to do some research, the parent company is called Luxottica.
yeah, based out of like Italy or something, I
Yeah,
think.
Luxottica. They own vision insurance, optometrists, and the companies who make the glasses. So they own it all.
And that's where we're headed here with our with our telecommunications and entertainment industry. I mean, it's already with Comcast. It's already there. They own media creation. They own
Hmm.
the pipeline. They're offering wireless
Oh yeah,
service
cell
at this
phone
point.
service now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I mean, let them merge with EA. Yeah, fuck it. Why not?
Yeah, just get took to town no matter what.
It's like that movie with was it Justin Timberlake, I think, where you're like trade. You have like the little timer on your wrist.
Oh
And you
yeah,
trade. Yeah, maybe it's called Timeless, Time something. It wasn't very original, the title of the movie.
it had an interesting
What's
concept
the
though.
plot
Yeah.
of the movie? It's about time. Oh, let's call it Timeless. Yeah, it works. All right, fuck it, ship it. Um, it's just like that movie. Like, oh, you guys are making more money? Okay, well, let's figure out how to get more money out of you. Like, your salary went up here. Let's figure out how to take that from you.
Oh, it's called
So
In Time.
there, really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's
In
not what my
Time
brain
is
was
a
telling me.
2011 American dystopian science fiction action thriller film.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's a
Shit was
the concept is
depressing
all
as
right,
shit.
but yeah, it's horribly depressing. So basically, everybody expires after 24 years, and the only way for you to live longer is to. They don't have money. You pay for everything in time. So you want a new car, it costs you years off of your life. Or, you work for a salary, you might get an extra year for every 2 weeks or whatever. That's basically, like you said, that's where we're heading. Like, okay, well, we took all the money. What else can we take from 'em? Let's take their life.
Yep.
They don't like it,
I
they got to
mean,
get more life. Yeah.
everything automated. What's the point
Yeah,
of keeping people around, right?
that's exactly it. We just need our android robot overlords to come in and just take us all out and rebuild. Come on,
Or
Skynet. We're ripe for it at this point.
or
It's
iOS robots.
yeah.
Hopefully they have their security patches in.
Oh Jesus. Oh, you don't get me started on security patches. Apple just patched their gaping security hole. Now, trust me, I like Apple, but I mean that's a pretty glaring hole, and I'm not going to shit on them too much.
It was a big fuck up for
Yeah.
production release. That was a
Oh yeah, I feel like that's something you
real
should check first.
real big fuck up. On top of the keychain fuck up after
Mm.
the initial release of High Sierra, like, oh, you can access the passwords in the keychain. People unfamiliar, Mac OS uses like a password manager type of functionality where it stores passwords or accounts for you in this keychain, where you can use one password to get into other shit, which is questionable at best to begin with. But there was a vulnerability in it with the release of High Sierra, the most recent Mac OS um, major release, where a nefarious character will be able to access the passwords you have in keychain. No, it's not called keychain, is it? It's called
No, it's called keychain. That's it. You're
you
right.
can access the passwords there without having the master password.
Yep.
Big hole. Recently, and granted, you get like minor kudos, like the kind of kudos you get for, I don't know, hitting someone's car and leaving a note instead of driving away kind of kudos. Um, they patched it quickly, but it was a hole where you could get root access. And again,
With
quick,
no password. So the exploit
yeah,
worked like this. I log in as a guest account and I go into system settings. As a guest account, the system settings are completely, there's nothing in there you can change besides like the brightness and the speaker volume. Everything else is locked. So what you do is you go to, down in the bottom left corner is a little padlock icon. You click on the padlock icon and it will normally put in your username. So it'll be like guest, or in my case, Howard. But what you do is you take that out and you just put in root with no password and click OK, and it unlocks. So now you have full unrestricted access to the system. And like Devin said, they did fix it quickly. It was patched basically the same day they announced it. So I didn't even hear about it until after the patch popped up on my screen. But like I said, I'm not going to knock them too hard, but that's something you should probably have found very quickly. That probably should have never made it into a production release. I'm waiting for Antonio to give me a whole bunch of shit for Apple here, but
I'm letting you have it today. You know, you always team Apple.
Yeah, no, that
keep letting them brainwash you.
That was a big fuck up. I mean, the whole point of them is it's a closed ecosystem. It's a smaller target, so there's less, there's fewer attacks, less malware, spyware, everything targeted towards Mac OS, but it doesn't even have to be targeted. The whole point of most like root, there's a whole category of unscrupulous software called rootkits, whose whole purpose is to get root access. There's fucking complicated code, entire phishing schemes just to get root access to machines, and your system that's on tens of millions of people's computers, and these are the people that they chose easy, right? They chose Mac because it's easy, it's simple to use, easy to get along with, not complicated.
It usually works very well. It's this
it's your user base.
Yeah.
And so and the thing is, you could have fixed this. You could fix it by setting an administrative password. If you set that, then the typing in root as the username and leaving the password field blank doesn't actually work. But that's not what the people using Macs are going to do. They're not even going to think about getting root access. They don't need it. They don't need it to run Photoshop or their media programs. They don't need it to go on Facebook and shit or write papers.
Right.
They don't need it for that. So none of them are thinking about that. And so you left a completely open door, like completely open. No password needed.
Busted it wide open for no passwords.
And listen, you can just shut the computer down, power it back up, and you don't need to log in as a guest or anything. You just type root as the username and double click, and you're in.
But that's only if so sidebar on that. That's only if you have the setting turned on that it. So the way mine's set up, it's restricted to accounts that are visible. You can't just type in root. You have to type in. You have to select an account that's visible, which in my case, it's only my account. But you can set it where it'll ask for a username and password. I don't have it set like that, and it's not the default, but some people do have it set like that. The thing is, the bigger thing about this too is you didn't even, like, the scenario I described, you had to have physical access. If you had screen sharing turned on, which is not turned on by default, but a lot of people do turn it on so that they can push to like their TVs and stuff. Anybody sitting in a cafe, you're at Starbucks getting a coffee, I see a Mac online and I think it might be vulnerable to this. All I got to do is try to access it remotely through screen share, and then boom, I'm in. So now I can install backdoor software because I have full access now. I have root access. So I can install backdoor software, keyloggers, remote access tools, Trojans, things like that. You'll never even know because the big boy root account is doing it.
You've got access now that the person that owns the computer doesn't even have access to with their primary account.
Exactly.
I'm going places in your house you don't even have the key to. Like,
yeah.
Oh, what's in this room? Oh, your credit card numbers. Oh, what's in this room? Oh, your tax returns with your social security number on it and your place of employment and your address.
Just what I needed to, this takes us back to the Equifax hack. It's stuff like this that needs to get patched quickly. And like I said, I'm not going to shit on Apple too hard. They very rarely have security patches that have to come out like this.
Go ahead, keep shitting on them. Keep going.
No, trust me. If you ever look at a Windows security patch roll-up, there's like 97 fixes in there. Like, this is one in a very blue moon. So I'll cut them a small break. They're usually pretty secure, but I feel like something like this should have been checked prior to pushing this out. Like, this is a very simple, nobody had to like do a timing attack or, shove software through Metasploit or something to your computer. They literally had to just type root and hit enter. So, this is not a complicated attack. I can understand if this was like, you have to have a, bachelor or a doctorate in systems engineering and systems security design to break this. Like, you have to be a researcher in order to break this, but this was a very simple exploit that anybody could have done with very little effort.
So how did Apple let it happen then?
It's just, I don't know. I don't know. That's all I can say.
Their fucking cash cow is the iPhone. That's how. Focus on what matters.
Well, like I said, man, it's very rare that this breaks down. So, and technically the operating system is free, so you don't pay for Mac OS X. You pay for the hardware, and it comes with Mac OS X. And then you can upgrade to the latest versions of Mac OS X anytime. Like, my MacBook had Mac OS X. What was before Sierra? I don't remember. But it had that, and then it upgraded too. So that'd be like if you bought a computer with Windows 7, and then you got Windows 8 and Windows 10 for free.
You got Windows 10 for free, but you're definitely paying for Mac OS X in the
hardware
Apple
costs.
Premium that you pay for those laptops.
Not really. I mean, my MacBooks. No, yours is definitely, your laptop's much more powerful than that. But I mean, it's nice.
No,
it feels like it'll last
nice.
a long time.
It's just, they're not using proprietary components. This isn't a PS3 with a special hexacore
you're
processor
correct.
in it.
Yeah, they're using an Intel chip and standard memory.
yeah, it's all off the shelf shit except I mean, there was a time they were using Thunderbolt and no one else was, and
they're still using Thunderbolt.
Firewall. No, but I think the XPS has a Thunderbolt port. If I'm not,
is it USB 3 or is it Thunderbolt?
I don't know. I thought it was Thunderbolt.
It might be Thunderbolt. Now, I have a Dell Precision 5510 over there that has a Thunderbolt port on it. But I know a lot of people get confused between USB 3, which is a transfer standard, and a Type-C connector, which is just a connector. But Type-C and Thunderbolt are interchangeable. It's just they operate in different ways, and obviously Thunderbolt's significantly faster than USB 3.1 Type-C. But the connector is the same. So.
Everything except their screens, which are unique in resolution and performance. Everything else is
off the shelf.
Off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a ton of Alienware, Asus, Lenovo, HP.
Oh,
MSI,
it's definitely gotten more mainstream, which I'm glad, because Thunderbolt 3 is incredibly fast. And I really want it to take off, because USB might die if Thunderbolt takes off. And then on top of that, you've got displays, because there's so much bandwidth there. It's not just about transferring stuff at 10 gigabits per second, which is faster than an NVMe drive at this point. It's fast storage is coming. Holy shit, is it coming?
Does my computer have a Thunderbolt port on it? I've been losing my mind.
Might be USB 3.
No, I'm looking online, and this model doesn't. The newest model of the laptop I have has a Thunderbolt port. These are all USB. There's one USB-C, and then some Type A connectors. But yeah, same parts, but you're paying a $300, $400, $500 premium, which you gotta assume part of that is paying for your free Mac OS X.
Yeah, but I mean, if I get, how much time do you really get out of a Windows computer? And
a lot, a lot of time. I mean, we use Windows 7 extensively, and it's very old.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't. I'm on Windows 10, baby.
High Sierra didn't bring any necessary updates. Like, they were minor updates realistically. Like, you could realistically still be using fucking snow leopard or mountain lion, your real limitation is going to be the hardware. And because we have, kind of parity in the speeds between our main storage, I don't really know what to call an SSD. Like, I want to call it memory, but it's not really accurate.
I mean, I
But
use
anyway,
flash chips, so I mean,
yeah, but because that hard drive limitation is gone, these computers can run 4 or 5 years, 6 years even, as long as you can replace the battery, right, Mac users? Yeah.
yeah, you can replace. Oh, well, hang on a minute. Can you pop the battery out of your XPS?
I have a Spectre, but no.
Oh, I thought you put the XPS.
Well, wait. No. Why did I change my mind? Money, probably. I don't remember. I think I got a good deal on this one because it had 16 gigabytes of RAM and the 4K screen.
I gotcha.
And the XPS was like $2,000 for the same specs. It has a panel with just torque screws at the bottom, so
Yeah.
presumably yes.
So I'll tell you, probably not, because my Precision also has that same panel, and obviously this is a Dell and you have an HP, but if you pop that bottom panel off, the only thing that's replaceable is the hard drives, the memory, and the battery is glued in. So technically replaceable the same way that the Mac battery is replaceable, because you can pop the bottom panel off of that Mac and replace the battery, but it's not just going to like pop out. You have to actually pop those tabs out, unglue it, heat it up a little bit, and then pull it out.
It says it takes 5 minutes when I fix it. And the diagram looks like it's just screwed in 8 places.
It might be. So don't get me wrong. But the thing is, I mean, as these computers get thinner batteries are going to glue them in. I mean, can you replace?
I don't get the point of gluing. Yeah, it's not glued in. You just unscrew it and pop it out. So
can you replace a battery on a Galaxy S8? I think that's glued in now too, isn't it?
Fuck no. Yeah, but I don't agree with that decision at all. I mean, so saying you can is a lie. It's the panel is glued on, so you could heat it and use a spudger and pop the back off. But
yeah, that's a pain in the ass.
Well, yeah, that's putting it mildly. Particularly because the glass is fragile, you're definitely gonna break it trying to take it off. But I don't agree with that decision.
I mean, that's the way things are going now, though. I mean, screws add a thickness. The brackets to mount these products with screws add thickness. If you want to keep getting thinner, the only way to do it is to glue this stuff in.
I don't want to keep getting thinner.
I don't want to keep getting thinner either. But that's a talk for another week. We've run long tonight, guys. I think it was a great talk, though. So I guess we'll call it an evening. Really appreciate everybody taking a listen to us tonight. I know the first half of the segment was pretty aggressive. I hope you guys are just as angry as I am. But again, really appreciate everybody listening. Check us out on the web, edge-tech.net. Check us out on YouTube, Edge Tech. Again, I'm Howard Chaplinsky.
I'm Antonio Rayner.
I have some closing remarks. Use your wallet to vote against EA and use your voice and your body to boycott Verizon and Comcast if you have the opportunity or the time or the balls. Do it. We'll be there. We'll be boycotting EA purchases, and I think we'll take the opportunity to get out in front of Verizon and make our voices heard. I'm Devin Gamble. Thanks for listening, guys.